Okay, welcome to today's session. All right. Today we're talking about the complex sentence. Okay, so let me write that here. Okay, complex sentence. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today, the complex sentence. All right. Complex sentence is a little different from the compound sentence, which we talked about last class. We did what? We did the simple sentence, right? Then we learned how to add modifiers to those simple sentences. We talked about compounding, right? And then we went to the compound sentence. All right, but now we're talking about the complex sentence. The complex sentence is a little different from the compound sentence in that you're using a different type of conjunction. All right, if you look here, you see these are conjunctions. These are many kinds of conjunctions, in terms of different words, different conjunctions. Under the heading of A, B, E, I, L, O, P, S. Okay, you even have an example in here. Okay, but I'm going to remove this example after I explain it, okay, because I need more room for writing here. All right, but nonetheless, even if I leave it, the important thing is for you to know that if you use one of these to combine two sentences together, then you're making what is called a complex sentence. All right, because in order to make a compound sentence, you had to use fanboys. If you remember fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. All right, so if you're using conjunctions other than fanboys, then you're making a complex sentence. All right, why do we call it a complex sentence? Because you're making a complex combination between two sentences where one sentence is dependent on the other. All right, let me give you an example here. All right, if I write one simple sentence, like for example, okay, that's a simple sentence. All right, so now I'm going to write another sentence. All right. All right, this is another simple sentence. Okay, so what happens now, we're going to combine these together. If I use fanboys, then I'm actually making a compound sentence. All right, for instance, if I said, all right, so we can use for, and let's use and, which is a simple one to be able to add to any sentence. Okay, if I did it that way, then I've actually made a compound sentence. Okay. I've made a compound sentence, but that's not what we're trying to do today. Today, we're trying to make complex sentences, so you can't use for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. All right, you're going to have to use one of these conjunctions, that you see here. After, although, as if, as long as much as soon as though, because, before, by the time, even if, even though, if, in order that, in case. But I do want to tell you right now, if is one of the conjunctions that when you use it, we have a new type of complex sentence called a conditional sentence. So I really don't want you to focus on using if for your homework, because that will be another new lesson where we're going to talk about the conditional sentences, which are also complex sentences, but we're going to be talking about the conditional sentences because there's a zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional. So we're going to talk about those separately. So don't worry about using if when you do your homework. Use any of the other conjunctions other than if, so that I won't have to go into another lesson, which you're going to get later. All right, so don't worry about if. All right, but if is one of the conjunctions that you use to make a complex sentence, but it becomes another type of complex sentence, which we call a conditional sentence. All right, so also in order that in case, less, once, only, if, provided that, since, so that, okay, then, that, though, till, unless, until, when, whenever, where, wherever, while. So the important thing here is that you know the meaning of these conjunctions, so you'll be able to use them properly. Like when we use and, it's like I said, it's one of the conjunctions used to make a compound sentence, but it doesn't change the meaning at all. And it's just putting these two sentences together. That's why it's a compound sentence. A complex sentence connects two sentences together meaning-wise, where one part of the sentence dependent on the other part of the sentence as far as the meaning is concerned. All right, they're inseparable. Once you use one of these types of conjunctions, the two sentences become inseparable, where the one starting with the conjunction becomes what we call a dependent clause. All right, so let's choose one. All right, let's choose one, but we're going to have to get rid of and we're going to have to get rid of the comma because we don't use it. For complex sentences, we don't use a comma. All right, so let's just add one after. Okay, so now I've created a complex sentence. Okay, so let's get rid of the two separate sentences because they're not separate anymore. All right, not separate anymore. Okay, so now we have a complex sentence here because we added after, right? And when you add after, what happens is the sentence that comes after, in this case, after, well, it's dependent. It's a dependent clause, you know, after I go to school. So I have to go visit my mother after I go to school. There's now a relationship between the two sentences. All right. So this is something that I'm going to do after I go to school. Okay, I have to go visit my mother after I go to school. So obviously I'm going to go to school first, and then after that I'm going to go visit my mother. All right, so there's a relationship between the two. They don't just stand alone. There's a relationship between the two sentences. So it's a complex relationship. All right, so you can now, for your homework, I want you to use one of each of these, okay, and make a new sentence. All right, so you're going to use after, you're going to use although, but don't steal the sentence that I gave to you. It won't count. All right. Okay, so you're going to use each one of these to write a new sentence. All right, connecting two simple sentences together so that it will be a complex sentence. Like I told you, the main thing that you have to focus on is the meaning, because if you don't know the meaning, maybe the sentence will be correct and maybe it won't, because it may not make sense the way you connected the two together. All right, because as you know, it's the reason. So if I say I have to go visit my mother because I go to school, well, it's because I'm going to school, now I have to visit my mother. So it creates a different type of relationship between the two sentences, but there is a relationship, an inseparable relationship, a complex relationship. All right, so you just have to know the meanings of these words so that you can use them properly in the way that you intend to. Let's say I use before. I say I have to go visit my mother before I go to school. Well, I did create a unique, complex relationship between them, but I've changed the time frame by which I will have to visit my mother. So if I have to go visit my mother before I go to school, then I'm going to have to go visit her. And then after I visit her, then I go to school. You see, so the meaning is what changes when you use a different conjunction. All right, but it still will be what we consider a complex sentence. All right, so use each one of these. Like I said, skip if, because if we're going to be using in the lesson about the conditional sentences. All right, so don't use if, because we'll deal with that in our other lesson about, complex sentences, the complex sentences, which are also called conditional sentences. All right, here, provided that, this is just giving you a little more information or meaning so you understand it, provided that carries the meaning of like if something happens. All right, since, so that, don't confuse so with so that. Reason being here is because if you remember fanboys, one of the conjunctions is so, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So don't confuse so that with so alone, because there's a difference. All right. So don't confuse so with so that. So that equals a motivator. So equals the result. All right. So there's a difference in meaning. I did that so that I will not have to go to school. Right. So you can see the meaning is different. It's the motivator. It's the reason. All right, which, is different from just the result. All right, so don't confuse the two, because one results in creating a compound sentence and the other results in making a complex sentence. All right, because that is a glue word. And so when you put so that together, it's connecting it with the next sentence, creating a complex sentence and not a compound sentence. Examples, I ate, so I'm not hungry. So that's the result. I'm not hungry. All right. But if I say I ate so that I will not be hungry, then that's the reason. All right. The motivator, the goal. All right. So there's a difference in the meaning when you use so that as opposed to using just so. All right. And then here we have than will be followed by a subject and verb. That, though, till, unless, until, when, whenever, where, wherever, while. Okay, so your homework is to write one new sentence for each one of these, except for using if. You will not use if for this assignment. All right, like I said, once again, because that will be a separate lesson about conditional sentences, dealing with the zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional. We're going to deal with all of those in a separate lesson. Okay, so that's your new homework. So you can see how many sentences you will have to have. Just count the words, because you have to write at least one sentence for each one of them. All right, and that ends our lesson for today about complex sentences. And I'll check your homework during the next lesson, and then we'll go into the new lesson. The new lesson which comes after this will be the conditional sentences that we will deal with after this lesson. But I need to see your homework and see that you understand how to do this and that you're doing this properly before we can go on to the conditional sentences. All right, enjoy your day, do your homework, and I'll see you next class, whether it's here, online, or as a video lesson. Okay.